Evan Hale had spent most of his life fixing broken things, but he had never expected that one loose wire would change his entire future. On Orbital Station 7, he worked as a junior engineer. The kind of guy who stayed late, clocked double shifts, and still went unnoticed in a crowd of louder voices. When he was assigned a shared living unit, he didn't complain. Space was limited, and sharing rooms with someone from another species wasn't unusual on this station. It was a place built on cooperation, learning, and peaceful exchange. Humans lived beside dozens of species, and everyone tried to show the best version of themselves. He was told that his roommate was an alien named Lyria from a species called the Virenthi. Almost nothing was known about them except for one major point: they spent most of their time in deep hibernation. Their resting cycle lasted seasons, not days. The station officers assured him that she would not wake up anytime soon. She had been asleep for 4 months already, and was expected to sleep for many more. Her section of the room was quiet and dim, sealed behind a gentle energy curtain that protected her resting state. The only rule was simple: no loud disruptions, no direct energy surges, and no poking around with her pod. Evan followed the rules. For weeks, he barely remembered he even had a roommate. His days were the same: wake up early, grab a ration bar, fix some overheating panel somewhere in the mechanical bay, return exhausted, and fall asleep with his boots still on. The station was always in need of repairs, and he was always in need of credits, so the cycle never stopped. Then one night, everything changed. The lights in their living unit began flickering in a strange rhythm. Usually, a single panel would glitch. But this time, the whole ceiling shimmered, like it couldn't decide whether it wanted to stay alive. Evan sighed, rolled up his sleeves, and grabbed his toolkit. He didn't want to bother maintenance again. Besides, he knew enough to fix a simple wiring issue. At least, he thought it was simple. He opened the access panel and immediately saw that the entire strip of connectors had corroded. Sparks arced across the line whenever the current tried to push through. That wasn't normal at all. He should have reported it. He should have stepped back, but he muttered to himself, "I can handle this," and leaned in. He replaced the first connector easily. The second one required a little more effort, and when he reached the third, a sudden jolt of electricity jumped from the circuit and struck the metal wall, making the entire unit hum. Evan cursed and tried to stabilize the surge by grounding the wire. Before he could react, a burst of energy erupted from the panel. Bright, loud, and completely uncontrolled. The surge hit the room like a small thunderclap. The energy curtain around Lyria's hibernation pod rippled. It wasn't supposed to react to outside power. Yet it glowed brightly, pulsing as though something behind it was responding. Evan froze. He held his breath. He took one step backward. The curtain flickered. Something shifted inside. Evan stared, unsure if he should run or pretend nothing happened. The pod was shaped like a large, smooth cocoon, with soft green light inside. The light flickered, dimmed, then brightened again. A silhouette moved. A hand pressed lightly against the inner surface of the pod. Evan's heart jumped into his throat. He whispered, "Please don't be waking up. Please don't be waking up." But the universe clearly wasn't listening. A bright swirl raced across the pod, and the surface dissolved into faint mist. A faint sound rose from inside, like a slow breath taken after a long time. Then a figure stepped out. He had seen images of the Virenthi before, but nothing prepared him for seeing one up close. Lyria had a tall, graceful form with pale, luminous skin that seemed to hold its own glow, like moonlight trapped inside her. Her eyes were a soft shade of teal, glowing faintly as they focused on her surroundings. Her hair flowed down her back like a mix of silver and dark blue threads. She wore a woven suit made of organic material that shifted color with her movement. Evan stood frozen, holding a screwdriver like it was a weapon. Lyria blinked slowly, then tilted her head at him. Her voice was quiet, smooth, and calm. "You are noisy." Evan nearly choked. I didn't mean to wake you. There was a surge. This wasn't supposed to happen, your pod." She stepped closer, watching him with curiosity instead of anger. "You created a disturbance large enough to break deep rest boundaries. she said gently. It must have been very strong. Her tone wasn't accusing. She sounded almost impressed. Evan lowered the screwdriver and tried to steady his breathing. I'm so sorry. They told me you would be asleep for months. I didn't think. I mean, I didn't try to wake you. Lyria looked around the room, studying everything as though she was seeing the world for the first time. The cycle is early, she whispered. But I am awake now. The rest is done. Evan blinked. Wait, just like that? You're awake? Awake? Already? She nodded softly. A Viranthi does not return to deep rest once the body chooses to awaken. The cycle continues until the next season. That single sentence struck Evan like a hammer. He realized what it meant. She wasn't going back to sleep. She was awake for the entire cycle, however long that lasted. He ran a hand through his hair and tried not to panic. Well, I guess. Welcome back? Lyria stepped closer to him again, studying his face like he was an unusual creature. You are the human assigned to this dwelling? Yeah, Evan Hale, engineer. He offered a weak smile. She continued observing him with curiosity shining in her glowing eyes. I sensed something when the surge happened. There was fear and urgency. Evan felt his cheeks warm. Well, I thought I might get electrocuted. So, yeah. A bit of fear. I felt it, she said. Your emotion pressed against my rest state. It called me out. He stared at her. Called you? She nodded again. Viranthi are sensitive to energy patterns. Strong emotional energy can reach us, especially when the source is close. She placed a hand on her chest. You were very close. He covered his face with his hands and groaned softly. Great. I emotionally jump-started my roommate, but Lyria looked almost pleased. I do not mind waking early. This environment is new. And you are interesting. That last word made him nearly stumble. No one had called him interesting in years. But Lyria seemed to mean it. She walked around the room, inspecting the walls, the tools, the bed, the lights, everything. Her movements were quiet and smooth, like she was floating more than walking. Evan followed her awkwardly, trying to find the right thing to say. So, do you need anything? Food? Water? A guide? Her teal eyes brightened. Guide. Yes, I will need one. Someone must help me understand this place. Well, I think the station assigns one, right? I don't think. She looked directly at him. You woke me. You will guide me. He froze. Me? Yes, you. She stepped a little closer. I do not choose lightly. Evan swallowed. The situation was already sliding out of his control. Okay. But you don't have to follow me around or anything. I mean, I work a lot. I have shifts, and you probably need time to adjust. But she was already standing beside him as if she had found her natural place. I will adjust, she said calmly. Show me what you do. Evan frowned. Now? Yes. Like, right now? She tilted her head. You work at night? I was trying to fix the lights. Then I will learn with you. He stared at her glowing face and sighed. Okay. Fine. But stay back while I check the wires. I don't want another. Before he could finish, Lyria reached toward the damaged connector. A soft glow formed around her fingertips, and the sparks stopped instantly. The corroded strip darkened, sealed, and reformed with smooth metallic shine. Evan stared with his mouth open. You can fix circuits? He whispered. She shrugged lightly, almost shy. It is basic. Energy is familiar to my kind. Machines speak loudly when they are hurting. Evan slowly lowered his tools. I've been fighting that thing for 20 minutes. Lyria gave him a small, gentle smile. Then you needed help. Her words felt strangely warm. For someone who had just awakened from a months-long rest, she was calm, composed, and surprisingly friendly. Evan didn't know what to do or what to say. All he knew was that the quiet room he once lived in had suddenly become very alive. He watched her look around, touching the walls softly, as if feeling the heartbeat of the station. He finally managed to speak again. "So, what now?" Lyria looked back at him, her glowing eyes steady. "Now," she said softly, "I stay near you. Until my cycle ends." He blinked. "For how long is that?" She thought for a moment. "For many cycles of your moon. Perhaps more." He rubbed his face again. "Great. So you're always going to be around?" "Yes," she said simply. "You woke me. Now I learn from you." Evan didn't know whether to laugh, panic, or collapse. But as Lyria's calm presence filled the room, he realized one thing: his quiet life was over. Whatever happened next, he wasn't facing it alone anymore. Evan woke the next morning with a strange feeling that someone was watching him. For a moment, he wondered if he had dreamed the entire thing. Lyria waking up early, standing in the middle of the room, fixing circuits with her glowing hands, and declaring she would stay beside him for the rest of her cycle. It all felt too surreal, like something his tired brain would invent after too many night shifts. But when he opened his eyes, the truth stood only a few steps away. Lyria was there, sitting quietly on the floor with her knees folded, glowing eyes focused on him with soft interest. She didn't blink much. Or maybe she blinked too gently for him to notice. Her presence filled the room with a cool, calming energy, almost like standing near a serene waterfall. Evan nearly jumped out of his bed. "Were you watching me sleep?" She tilted her head. "I was observing your resting form. Humans change their breathing patterns many times. It is fascinating. Okay, well, maybe don't stare at me the whole night next time," he said awkwardly, rubbing his face. "I was not staring. I was learning," she corrected gently. "You said I should learn while I stay near you." Evan had no idea how to argue with that. He sat up, ran a hand through his messy hair, and glanced at the time. He was already running late for work. He threw on a clean uniform shirt and grabbed his tool pack. Lyria stood immediately, as if connected to his motion. "Are we leaving?" "You don't have to follow me," he said quickly, holding up a hand. "You can stay here and rest or adjust to being awake." She blinked once. "I do not require rest, and I will follow you," Evan sighed. "Okay, but you need permission to walk into the engineering sector. They don't just let anyone in." "Then I will stand beside you until you open the door," she replied. She said this so calmly that Evan couldn't even get annoyed. She wasn't doing anything wrong, she was simply doing exactly what she said she would do. Staying near him, learning from him, they left the living unit and walked down the corridor. A few officers glanced at them with wide eyes. Virenthi were rarely seen awake. Seeing one walking so confidently beside a human made people slow down or whisper to one another. Evan kept his head down as they stepped into the lift. "Don't mind them," he muttered. "People just aren't used to seeing your species outside rest pods." Lyria looked around calmly. "Their curiosity does not harm me." "Yeah, but it's making me nervous," he mumbled. When they reached the engineering deck, Evan paused. "Okay. Here's where it gets tricky. If anyone asks, just stay close. And try not to touch anything, unless I tell you to." "Okay?" She nodded. "Understood." Evan took a deep breath and stepped into the workshop. Immediately, the room went silent. People stopped their repairs. Someone accidentally dropped a tool. A supervisor nearly walked into a storage tank while staring at Lyria. A technician whispered loudly, "No way. Is that a Virenthi awake?" Another muttered, "Aren't they supposed to sleep for half a year?" Evan tried to walk faster, hoping no one would notice him. But Lyria walked beside him, tall and striking, glowing like a soft lantern in a dark room. There was no hiding her. His supervisor, Captain Morrow, approached with eyes so wide it looked painful. "Hail. Why is there a Virenthi standing behind you?" Evan gulped. "Long story." "Make it short," Morrow demanded. "I accidentally woke her up during a power surge." The entire workshop froze. "You did what?" Morrow whispered. It wasn't on purpose, Evan said quickly. The wiring exploded, and the surge hit her rest pod. Next thing I knew, she woke up. Morrow rubbed his forehead. Virenthi are not supposed to wake early. Their biology. I know, Evan said. But she's awake now. And she's following you? Why? Lyria stepped forward before Evan could answer. This human's energy reached me. I sensed urgency and fear. It woke me. I chose him as my guide. The room became even more silent. Evan whispered desperately. Please stop saying things like that. Morrow held up his hand. All right. Hale. Try to keep her calm and stay out of trouble. The council will probably want to meet her later. Just keep her from touching anything important. Evan nodded quickly, relieved. But Lyria looked around the workshop with great interest. Machines hummed. Sparks danced from welding stations. Energy panels glowed. And she saw all of it differently than everyone else. She didn't just look at them, she sensed them. Evan began working on a control console that had been malfunctioning for a week. The current inside it kept shorting out, and no one could figure out why. He opened the panel, saw the mess of wires, and groaned. Great. A nightmare, in metal form. Lyria crouched beside him without a sound. The flow is uneven. You can feel that? He asked. She placed her hand near the wires, not touching, just sensing. There is a distortion. Like a heartbeat skipping. Evan blinked. I've never heard someone describe electricity like that. She gave a small smile. Energy has rhythm. When broken, it cries. He had no idea what that meant, but within seconds, she identified the exact wire deep inside the panel. Evan reached in and pulled it out with careful hands. How did you? It is obvious, she said simply. To her, maybe it was. To him, it was like watching magic. Soon, she moved around the workshop, standing just behind him as he checked consoles, tightened valves, and tested circuits. She didn't touch anything unless Evan gave permission. And when she did help, she did it with silent precision. After an hour of this, one of the senior engineers walked over, curiosity overpowering hesitation. So, Lyria? Was it? What do Virenthi usually do when they're awake? Lyria thought for a moment. We observe. We learn. And we protect the environments we inhabit. Protect? The engineer repeated. From what? From imbalance, she replied calmly. A place with unstable energy is dangerous for all who live in it. Evan watched her speak, amazed by how smoothly she handled the conversation. She wasn't shy or confused. She was simply new to everything, and determined to understand it. During lunch break, he tried to slip away quietly to avoid attention. Lyria followed right behind him, silent and graceful. When they reached the cafeteria, people stopped eating mid-bite. Evan felt like shrinking into the floor. He grabbed a tray of food, found a corner table, and sat down. Lyria sat across from him, watching intently as he ate. You don't eat human food, right? He asked nervously. I do not require sustenance for several days, she said. My energy reserves are still full. That's convenient. She leaned forward slightly. Evan, why do humans avoid looking at those they do not understand? He blinked. Because they don't know how to react. But you react with calmness, she observed. That's because I'm trying really hard, he replied. Her eyes softened. You are doing well. For some reason, that compliment hit him harder than it should have. After lunch, they explored the observation deck. The large glass panels revealed a view of the star-filled void. Lyria walked slowly, placing her hand on the transparent surface. This universe is loud, she whispered. I did not hear this much during rest. Is it too much? He asked. No, she said softly. It is beautiful. As they walked back, a security officer approached them. He carried a datapad with Lyria's name glowing on it. Evan Hale? The officer asked. Yeah? The council requests the presence of your roommate for a health and stability check. They're concerned about early awakening. The council requests the presence of your roommate. They're concerned about early awakening. Evan looked at Lyria. Do you want to go? I do not fear them, she said calmly. But I wish to stay with you. The officer cleared his throat. She can come with you, but she must be examined. Evan nodded reluctantly. The two followed the officer to the medical wing. The staff there looked equally confused but tried to stay respectful. Lyria sat without protest while they scanned her vitals. The screens showed patterns none of them recognized. She's stable, the doctor muttered. More stable than I expected, but she shouldn't be awake, the assistant whispered. Lyria opened her eyes. I woke because I wished to. Humans are not the only ones who can choose. Evan felt strangely proud hearing her say that. He still felt guilty for being the accidental trigger. But she didn't seem upset at all. After the exam, the doctor turned to Evan. You need to be aware. Virenthi form strong attachments when they wake early. They seek emotional anchors. She may follow you for some time. Lyria looked at Evan calmly, as if waiting for his reaction. He swallowed. I noticed. As they left the medical wing, Lyria walked closer than before, not touching him, just near enough that her presence felt like a shield. Do you dislike me, staying beside you? She asked softly. He stopped walking. No. It's just unexpected. Unexpected is not always bad, she said. He looked at her glowing eyes and realized she was right. She hadn't caused any trouble. She had only helped him, protected him from embarrassment, and even fixed machines he struggled with. Maybe having her around wasn't so bad. They returned to their living unit. Lyria stood by the window, watching the stars again. Evan sat on his bed, exhausted from the day, but unable to deny that it had been one of the most unusual and strangely meaningful days of his life. He finally spoke softly. So, you're staying with me, for real? She turned to him, her voice steady. For as long as this cycle lasts, he smiled faintly. Then I guess we better figure out how to live together. Lyria stepped closer, calm and certain. I will learn. And I will stay. Evan realized then that nothing in his life would ever be simple again. But as he watched Lyria's soft glow fill the room, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Evan never imagined that waking his alien roommate early would put him at the center of the station's attention. But by the third day, everyone knew about the human and the awakened Virenthi who followed him like a quiet shadow. At first, people only stared because Lyria was unusual. But soon, whispers became louder. Some workers were curious, some nervous, and some simply confused about what her presence meant. Still, nothing felt dangerous until the morning the alarms began screaming across Orbital Station 7. Evan was halfway through a diagnostic test in the engineering bay when the lights flashed red and the speakers boomed with a voice he didn't recognize. Warning. Unidentified energy breach detected in Sector 4. All engineering staff report to emergency stations immediately. People scrambled, tools fell. Anyone not trained for emergencies rushed to the nearest shelter point. Evan's heart thumped as he grabbed his equipment and ran toward the main hallway. Lyria was already beside him, her expression calm but her eyes glowing brighter than usual. Stay with the others, Evan told her, as he sprinted toward the junction. This could be dangerous. She didn't slow. You will be there. I stay with you. It's not safe, he said, breathless. I do not break easily, she replied. He wanted to argue, but another alarm cut him off. This one sounded lower, deeper, like the roar of something alive. When they turned the corner, the reason became clear. A section of the hallway was blackened. The walls melted as if something had drained the energy right out of them. Lights flickered, and sparks danced from the ceiling. A maintenance robot lay collapsed on the ground, its systems shut down completely. Evan knelt beside it, touching its shell. It's cold. No power at all. Lyria crouched next to him and placed a hand over the destroyed panel. This was not malfunction, she said softly. Something took its energy. Consumed it. He looked up. Consumed? Before she could answer, a shrill screech echoed down the hall. The sound reminded Evan of metal tearing itself apart. Workers who had tried to come help immediately turned and ran the other direction. Evan's hands trembled. "We need to fall back. Whatever that thing is." A flash of blue light streaked across the hall, followed by a distorted shape crawling across the wall like a living bolt of electricity. Its form kept shifting, sometimes humanoid, sometimes a cluster of flickering lines, sometimes just a ripple of glowing energy. "It's an arc creature," Evan whispered. "They're not supposed to be near this area. How did one get into the station?" Lyria stood in front of him before he even realized she had moved. "It seeks the currents of this place. It is hungry." Evan grabbed her arm. "You need to step back." She shook her head slowly. "No. You are too fragile to fight this." The creature lunged. Lyria reacted instantly. She raised one arm, and a soft pulse of green-blue light expanded from her palm. The energy hit the arc creature like a barrier, pushing it backward. The creature screeched again and crawled across the wall, circling them. Evan backed away slowly, stunned. "You can do that?" "My kind knows energy," she answered without taking her eyes off the creature. "This one behaves like a starving child." "Well, that starving child can tear through power grids and kill us," Evan said through clenched teeth. Lyria stepped forward. "Then it must be calmed, or pushed away." The creature lunged again, faster this time. Lyria met it with a sharp wave of energy, her eyes glowing fiercely. The collision sent sparks flying and shook the floor beneath them. Evan nearly fell back but caught himself on a railing. Another explosion shook the corridor. The arc creature split into two smaller streams, darting in opposite directions. One raced toward the engineering sector, the other toward the life support vents. "Oh no," Evan breathed. "If it reaches life support." Lyria placed both hands on the ground. A pulse traveled through the floor, causing lights across the hall to flicker. "I will stop the one going to life support. You stop the other." Evan stared at her. "How am I supposed to stop it?" "You understand the machines here. Close the barrier gates. Slow it." He didn't want to leave her alone, but the station depended on them. Finally, he nodded. "Okay. Don't get yourself killed." She gave a soft smile. "I do not plan to." They split. Evan dashed toward the engineering wing, pulling up the emergency control panel as he ran. His fingers flew over the controls. "Come on! Come on! Manual override! Shut the bulkhead now!" The heavy door slammed down just as the arc creature reached the entrance. It screeched, slammed into the metal, and sent sparks flying. Evan stumbled backward. The creature didn't stop. It moved across the ceiling and slipped through a damaged vent opening. "No, no, no," he groaned. He ran to the main console in the engineering hub and pulled up the ventilation map. The creature was moving fast, zipping through the ducts like lightning. He grabbed a portable barrier emitter, strapped it to his arm, and climbed into the emergency access ladder. "Lyria, better be okay," he muttered to himself as he crawled through the tight space. Meanwhile, Lyria moved like someone born to walk in danger. The lights flickered as she followed the arc creature's path, her feet silent on the ground. The creature dove through pipes and danced across walls, seeking any energy source it could drain. Whenever it got close to a life support unit, Lyria intercepted it with a shield of glowing green light. She pushed it back again and again, each clash sending ripples through the hallway. Her body glowed brighter every time the creature hit her barrier. The Virenthi were not built for combat, but their connection to energy made them powerful in ways no one expected. As she fought, she spoke softly as if to calm the creature. "You are lost. You are hungry. But this place is not yours." The creature screeched again and shot toward her. She blocked it, but she felt a strain in her limbs. She staggered back slightly. Virenthi energy was strong, but not endless. She whispered to herself, "I must hold until Evan finishes." Evan was battling the other creature in the ducts. He crawled forward, holding the barrier emitter ahead of him. Sparks danced around him as the creature zipped closer. He triggered the emitter. A blue field expanded in the tight space, temporarily slowing the creature's movement. But only for a moment. The creature pressed harder against the barrier, its form shaking wildly. "Great. You're stronger than you look," Evan muttered. Sweat dripped down his face. He adjusted the emitter's frequency. Come on. Hold. Hold. The creature shrieked and pushed harder. The barrier flickered. Evan gritted his teeth. Not today. He slammed the emitter against the metal wall, redirecting the barrier. The creature was forced into a side vent and shot downward straight toward an energy containment room, one built to store unstable power cells. That's bad, Evan panted. Really bad. He climbed down the hatch and ran toward the containment room. His boots slammed against metal as he pushed his tired legs to go faster. When he reached the room, the creature was already inside, circling the cells like a predator drawn to prey. Hey! Evan shouted. Even though he knew yelling wouldn't help, the creature lunged toward a power cell. He reached the control panel and hit the emergency lock. Steel shutters slid down around the power cells, blocking the creature's access. It bounced off the shutters, screeching angrily. Evan swallowed hard. That's right. No snacks for you. But the creature now turned toward him. Oh no, he whispered. It shot forward. Before it could hit him, a burst of green-blue light slammed into the creature, sending it flying across the room. Lyria stood at the doorway, breathing harder than before. But she was still standing tall. I told you, she said, her voice soft but firm. I will stay near you. Evan let out a shaky breath. I'm really glad you did. Together, they faced the creature as it reformed itself. Electric lines swirling with rage. Lyria raised both hands, creating a powerful pulse of light. Evan raised the barrier emitter beside her, syncing its frequency with her energy. The two forces combined into a shimmering wall of power. The creature hit the wall, shrieking. Lyria pushed harder. Her glow intensified until the room seemed bathed in soft green light. Evan felt the emitter burn in his hands, but he held on. Finally, with a final rippling scream, the arc creature broke apart into tiny sparks. The sparks floated gently, then faded into nothing. Silence filled the room. Evan collapsed to one knee. Lyria swayed, but didn't fall. She steadied herself with a deep breath. Slowly, she reached out and touched Evan's shoulder. You are safe, she whispered. He looked up at her, breathing heavily. Thanks to you. She shook her head. Thanks to us. You helped. Your machines listened to you. Evan smiled weakly. You're kind of amazing. Lyria lowered her gaze, looking almost shy. I only followed what felt right. When followed, sirens slowed. Lights returned to normal. Across the station, officers reported the threat was gone. But everyone also reported something else. A Virenthi woman had fought a creature made of pure energy and protected a human engineer with fierce determination. And now, Evan and Lyria stood in the quiet containment room, realizing that nothing would ever be the same again, not for them, and not for the station. News of the arc creature incident spread across Orbital Station 7 faster than any official report could. People who had only heard whispers about the awakened Virenthi now spoke with awe. They described her glowing hands, her calm voice during chaos, and the way she protected the human engineer who stood beside her. Some claimed she had saved the entire station. Others said she formed an energy shield stronger than the station's own barriers. Evan felt embarrassed hearing people exaggerate, but he also knew they weren't entirely wrong. The truth was simple. Lyria had saved lives, but that didn't stop the council from calling them both for questioning the next morning. Evan walked beside Lyria, feeling as if everyone who passed them stared a little longer than usual. He kept whispering reminders like, "It's just a talk," and "They want to make sure you're okay." But deep down, he was nervous. What if they separated them? What if they decided Lyria was unstable because she woke early? What if they blamed him for everything? Lyria walked calmly, her steps quiet and steady. "Your concern is loud," she said softly. "Sorry," he muttered. "I'm not good at hiding it." She turned her head slightly, her glowing eyes gentle. "It is not bad to worry. It means you care," he swallowed. "I just don't want them taking you away." "They will not," she said simply, as if the idea didn't scare her at all. Evan wished he had that kind of confidence. When they arrived at the council chamber, guards stood outside, but none stopped them. Inside, several high-ranking officials waited at a round table. The air felt heavy. Screens showed footage from the Arc creature attack. Images froze on the moment Lyria blocked the creature with her hands glowing bright green. Counselor Rion, an older woman with silver hair, stood. Lyria of the Virenthi. And Evan Hale of Engineering. Thank you for coming. Evan nodded nervously. Lyria bowed politely. We called you here because your actions prevented a catastrophe. Rion continued. But we also have questions. Lyria. You woke months earlier than expected. Why? Lyria gave a calm answer. The human's emotional surge reached me during rest. His fear touched my senses. I woke to understand it. The council exchanged glances. Another member leaned forward. Virenthi do not normally wake during rest. This is unusual, Lyria nodded. Yes, it is unusual. But not harmful. And you chose to follow Evan Hale? Yes. He was the first energy I sensed. My instinct told me to stay near him. Evan felt everyone's eyes shift toward him. He resisted the urge to shrink into his seat. A different counselor spoke. Are you aware that early awakening can sometimes cause instability in Virenthi biology? It can stress your energy patterns. Lyria held a steady posture. I am aware. But I feel balanced. I do not sense illness. The head counselor tapped her fingers lightly. And your display of power yesterday? Is that normal for your species? Lyria paused for the first time. It is not common, but it is within possibility. I did what I needed to do. Evan stepped forward before he even realized it. She saved us. She saved half the station. If she didn't fight that creature, we'd be pulling bodies out of collapsed sectors. Lyria looked at him with quiet surprise. The council seemed to consider his words. Finally, Counselor Rian spoke again. We are not here to punish anyone. But we do need to make a decision about your living situation and safety. Lyria's early awakening and her energy abilities are things we must monitor. Monitor. Evan felt a cold knot in his stomach. Then Rian continued. We contacted the Virenthi homeworld for guidance. Their representative will arrive shortly. Evan glanced at Lyria. She didn't flinch, but something in her posture tightened. Within moments, the doors opened. A tall figure entered, robed in soft layers of pale green and white. His eyes glowed like Lyria's. But his presence felt ancient, quiet, wise, and steady. Elder Zyron, Lyria breathed. He approached her with calm dignity. Child of the Virenthi, you woke before the appointed season. Yes, she said softly. Why? She didn't look away. Because I felt a call. The elder studied her silently. His glow brightened as he turned to Evan. You, human. Step forward. Evan did, though his legs were shaking. The elder circled him once, humming softly. It felt as if the air itself was reading Evan's emotions. Finally, the elder spoke. Your energy stirred hers. Strong emotion, strong fear, strong urgency. Virenthi do not wake early unless deeply affected. You created a bond. Evan almost choked. A bond? Like what kind of bond? A guide bond, the elder explained. When a Virenthi senses a unique emotional signal strong enough to reach their rest cycle, they imprint on it. It becomes a stabilizing point for them. They follow, learn, and trust that source. Evan blinked rapidly. So, she's bonded to me? Yes, the elder said simply. As long as the cycle lasts. Lyria stepped forward slightly. He has welcomed me. He has not rejected my presence. Evan looked at her. She was calm, but he could sense a question behind her eyes, almost like she wondered if he wished otherwise. The council looked uncertain. Some were worried. Others looked relieved now that the situation had an explanation. Finally, Counselor Rian spoke again. So what does this mean for the station? Can she stay? Is she safe? The elder turned to her. Lyria is stable. Her energy is healthy. Her early awakening was not a mistake. It was a response. He paused a moment before speaking his next words. If she wishes to remain awake and stay with her chosen guide, I will not force her into rest. Lyria bowed her head. Thank you, Elder. However, he added, the bond must be respected. Separation could cause emotional distress or imbalance. Evan felt something warm and heavy settle inside him. It wasn't fear. It wasn't pressure. It was something else. Responsibility mixed with acceptance. He looked at Lyria. She looked at him. I don't mind, Evan said softly. She can stay with me. Lyria's glow brightened almost imperceptibly. I will stay by choice, not duty. The council took a vote, and the decision was unanimous. Lyria could remain awake. She could remain with Evan, and she could continue assisting the station as long as she chose, under observation for health not control. When the meeting ended, Evan and Lyria walked out together. The hall felt larger than before. The air lighter. Are you all right? Evan asked quietly. Yes, she said. Are you? He exhaled a long breath. I think so. I thought they'd take you away for sure. She stepped closer. I told you they would not. He laughed weakly. You had more faith in them than I did. No, she corrected softly. I had faith in you. Evan looked at her glowing eyes and felt a flutter in his chest. I didn't really do anything. You spoke for me, she said. You cared. He didn't know how to respond to that. Instead, he started walking back toward their living unit. Lyria followed. But unlike before when she followed silently, now she walked beside him, matching his pace as if they were equals. When they returned to their room, the familiar soft lights turned on. Everything felt strangely different, though nothing had changed physically. Evan dropped onto his bed with a long sigh. That was a long day. Lyria stood near the window, her hand resting lightly on the glass as she watched distant stars. The universe feels brighter after action, she said. Evan looked at her. You were brave. You saved everyone. She shook her head gently. We saved everyone. You did not leave me alone. He smiled. I guess we're a pretty good team. Her eyes softened. A balanced pair. For a long moment, the two simply existed beside each other. No alarms. No council. No monsters. Just quiet hums of the station and soft glowing lights. Finally, Lyria turned from the window and sat across from him. Evan? Yeah? My cycle lasts many moons. During this time, Virenthi stay near their bonded guide. It is a tradition. But I do not want this to be a burden for you. Evan leaned forward. Lyria, you're not a burden. You never were. She looked down slightly, almost shy. Then, I am glad I woke to your energy. Evan felt something tighten gently in his chest. He didn't know what their future held. But he knew one thing. He didn't want her to leave anytime soon. The hum of the station grew softer during the night cycle. Lyria rested in a meditative position, eyes glowing faintly. Evan lay on his bed, watching her silhouette. He thought of everything that had happened. The accidental awakening, the strange creature, the council, the elder's words. In the quiet of their small living unit, with stars shining beyond the window, Evan whispered into the dim light, I'm glad you're here. Lyria's eyes opened slowly. She didn't move, didn't turn. But her voice carried through the calm air with soft warmth. So am I. And from that night forward, everyone on Orbital Station 7 understood one truth. The human and the awakened Virenthi were no longer just roommates. They were partners, two different life forms, whose paths had crossed by accident, but whose bond would change both their worlds in ways no one could predict.